Welcome to Surrender School.
All right, so the mission statement of Surrender School is that Surrender School, we recover. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions for those who want a healthy relationship with food. Obviously, we welcome all 12-steppers here, so our main focus is food, but that may not be your main focus. All right, we are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do adhere to the spirit of the traditions. We have workshops, Supercharge Your Recovery, Sundays at 10:30. We just started step 4. Tied to that, we have office hours on Monday and Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific and Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific. This is the intro, if you will, to the First Friday Enneagram Exchange for the next several months. Michael is going to be covering the different zones of the 3 different instincts. So today is going to be the 3 zones of the sexual instinct. We also have a book study with Michael Naylor, who is the author of The Alchemy of the Enneagram and Transforming Addiction. And that's Mondays, monthly, on certain Mondays. The dates are on the website, so look that up. We have reading rooms. The difference between a book study and a reading room: a book study, you read on your own, and then we kind of come together and discuss it. The reading rooms, we actually physically read it together. We have 3 reading rooms going on right now. Drop the Rock, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. The AA 12 and 12, Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m. All times are Pacific. And then Emotional Sobriety, Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Pacific time. We have a couple of new things going on. There's 12 steps and 12-week step study that begins May 3rd on Saturday at 10 a.m. In addition to that, we have a 30-day intensive daily recovery. So that is like every day for 30 days. And that's a workshop led by Linda T. For people that are maybe having trouble, which would be awesome to spend 30 days. So it's basically 30 meetings in 30 days-ish, okay? And then we also have the First Friday Enneagram Exchange. Once Michael is finished with talking about the different zones, et cetera, of the instincts, then there'll just be kind of a podcast feel where I'll interview Michael, he'll interview me, we'll have guests come in, and the difference between a podcast and what we're doing is ours also includes questions from the audience. So if you have questions, you can ask. And that's kind of fun. We're looking forward to that. All right. Everything we offer, consider taking past workshops, experiencing the meditations by steps, working through the steps, maybe take that 12-week study, and then attending the in-person retreat that we're going to do in 2026, if you'd like, in Las Vegas. If you'd like to help with that, reach out to Joy, let her know that. All right, all this can be found on Surrender School. If you'd like to be a volunteer, reach out to Lori and let her know. We absolutely need additional leaders for the breakout sessions during the Supercharge, just because we're going to have smaller groups because we want to give people a little bit more time to share. Okay. If Surrender School has helped your recovery, please donate. You'll find the donate button at the bottom of the website. There's also one up above. So please feel free to donate. Even though none of us take any money for what we're doing, we do have expenses, and we are a 501(c), which means you can deduct, if you're in the United States, you can deduct your donations. All right. We also have a WhatsApp group that you may want to join. And we also suggest, or at least recommend, that you sign up for the daily Enneagram Thought from the Enneagram Institute at enneagraminstitute.com. There is no space between Enneagram and Institute, except on my slide. All right. So let's take a minute. Feel your breath going in and out, and feel your feet on the floor. Be present. Just be present with what's happening now. And together, let's do the set-aside prayer. God, help me to set aside everything I think I know, to leave space for what I have yet to learn. All right, Michael, I'm going to hand it off to you.
All right. Thanks, Cheryl. And so hello, everyone. We're talking about the sexual instinct, the intensity instinct, which is different than the self-present instinct. And I'm going to go through the 3 zones. And I think what I'm going to do on this presentation is actually go through the 3 zones and then open it up for questions at the end, because I want to make sure I get through it. So write your questions down, put them in the parking lot on a note or something, because I don't want to miss the questions. But just want to make sure that I cover what I've set out to cover. And so we'll start with this slide, which is popping up quite slowly. There we go. So the attraction instinct, the intensity instinct, the sexual instinct, it has a number of different meanings. One certainly having to do with sexuality, intensity of sexual feelings and needs around sexuality, but it also includes an overarching look at our attractions, how, what our strength of attractions, things we're attracted to strongly, our desires and intensity needs, what we need for a kind of certain quality of intensity to feel like we're here and feel like we're being nurtured. So it can be sexual, it can be emotional, it can be intellectual stimulation, that, there's a sense of really wanting to go deep into whatever it is that I'm participating in. If you're a dominant sexual instinct type, it's like this is sort of like the food of your soul. So the need for intensity reflects also a need for newness, for change, for growth. There's this sense that when I reach the saturation point on whatever it is I'm studying and I'm starting to lose that intensity, the instinct can operate in such a way that you start to feel like, you start getting nervous or antsy or feel like not feeling good. Like I'm actually I'm losing connection with something I care about. So it has something to do with the zen of breaking up deadening habits. And, just like self-pres folks can get really comfortable with habits and really like habits, the sexual instinct is really oriented towards noticing when a habit is no longer serving or allowing for expansion. So attractions, desires, intensity needs. If I'm a dominant sexual, this is something that's on the forefront of my attention, what I'm looking for, what I'm wanting. So that said, you were wild once, don't let them tame you, says Isadora Duncan. And a little tango. This is a high intensity activity along with this. And we're just sort of pointing out the places where it shows up. And so immersion. And so we have some characters that represent the sexual instinct. We have Gurdjieff, and then LeBron. If you're a basketball fan, James LeBron is an intense sexual type, as Serena Williams. And then Peter Gabriel, another intense musician, and Prince, and Russell Brand, and can't remember this type 2, what her name is. And then there's Michael Jackson. So there's this quality of charisma, for intensity, for mystery. So for the sexual types, you often feel tired, not because you've done too much, but because you've done too little of what sparks a light in you. And that really is sort of a calling card for the sexual dominant type. When they're not doing things that spark a light, they start to feel a kind of deadness coming through them. And it can feel like an emergency. So when sexual types enter the room, what are they looking for? Well, who looks interesting? Where's an attraction? What am I attracted to here? Where's the attractive energy? Where's the juice, the tingle in the room? There's this sense of just looking and checking for, I feel attraction there. I feel attraction there. Whose energy is the most intense. And, when you have that dominant instinct, you're attuned to people whose intensity is at your level. Also, you feel it, you're drawn to it, you want to go check it out. Look at what she or he has on. There's something attractive. You captured my eye, you captured my instinct. Who seems to be lively, full of life, and having fun. I hope I can get his or her attention. And I sure hope this workshop is interesting. Actually, I sure hope it's mind-blowing. That would be better. I want to have an intense workshop experience. No, none of this low light stuff. So we have 3 zones: the evolutionary impulse, broadcasting and attraction, and immersion and fusion. And so within one instinct, the sexual intensity instinct are the three zones. And so what I just encourage you to do is notice, which of the zones you feel an affinity with, and where do you feel a lack of affinity or maybe even aversion. That's always a good way to sort of navigate them and decide, okay, where would it be useful for me to work on some of these things? So let's look at the evolutionary impulse and just start with the first item, which is my ability to push the envelope to engage in creative exploration, which has something to do with going to the edge of the known world and stepping beyond it. There's a certain quality of intensity, of excitement, of anticipation, where there's risk involved. And the sexual types are the ones who really love that edge and love to step over it, even if they're scared to death of it. They'll feel it kind of pull to go in that direction. And if I'm not doing that on a regular basis as a dominant sexual, I start to feel really dead. So it's the need to move beyond my known edge and out of my comfort zone. Now, self-pres types can get and feel attuned to being in comfort zones that they can control and predict. But the sexual types kind of rebel against it. It's like, that starts to make me feel caged in. And if I'm not, in a sense, sort of going towards the next edge, I start to feel like I'm missing something. And again, this is if it's the dominant instinct. So Martha Graham says there's a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that's translated through you into action. Because there's only one of you in all time, the expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and will be lost. And this to me is the creative impulse, the sense of really being able to feel that, that pull to create something, to step into the unknown with my creativity and to really trust, the intensity of whatever my call is. That's the sexual instinct. So my ability to sense when something is dead in my life and needs change, a shock is needed. So I know for myself as a sexual dominant type, I love it when I'm feeling a tremendous passion for whatever I'm doing. And then when that passion, for whatever reason, starts to die or wither or be, in a sense, not as useful to my soul, there'll be this sort of period of time where I'm in the desert looking for the next light of excitement and hoping I don't die out in the desert. And we say the word shock, that sometimes, there's a way that I'm looking for something that will sort of propel me into the next dimension so I can be on the trail of what I care about again. So my need and passion to break no longer useful habits and move into the new. We often say about dominant sexual types that there are many chapters in their life. So, they'll go on a 4-year sprint and then shift and go on a 6-year sprint on something else, then go on another sprint on something else. But there's this sense of moving to completion and then stepping into the new that's a part of their pattern. My drive to expend and express my life energy, which is different than self-pres, which is to contain it, control it, manage it, use it practically. This is about expression of whatever that energy is in me, letting it out, sharing it with the world. So this is sometimes correlated with an assertive pattern in the types, assertive instinct. And the assertion has to do with, going towards what draws me energetically, what attracts me. And the sexual types are oriented when they feel an attraction towards something to go and at least to sample it, to not let it slip by, that really pay attention to their attractions. And part of their work is to notice which attractions are useful and which is part of my own neurotic personality that just needs stimulation for stimulation's sake. But there's this sense of tracking and checking and seeing what's that next piece of attraction that I care about. So it's not about teamwork, which is the social instinct. It's not about safety, predictability. It's about seeking adventure, going into the unknown. So, when we think about the three instincts, the self-pres, conserving, sexual, expending, the social instinct, teamwork with the rest of my peers. The one thing that we say is ultimately we're hoping that all three of these instincts get balanced, and that's the end point. So the drive towards what's interesting, what's attractive, what's exciting. I'm going to go for that. And I know for myself, when I feel a kind of attraction towards a new idea, there's something inside of me that says, yes, this has to be explored. I've got to go do it. And I know for myself that if you looked at the history of my life, you'd see a lot of pioneering kinds of explorations into new experiences, most of them inclined towards spiritual growth and transformation, which is why I've really enjoyed the Gurdjieff work, because there's always a new edge that hasn't been explored. It's like it never gets boring within that particular work. So it's my wish for fresh experiences, fresh impressions, encounters, a sense of really knowing the importance of fresh experiences, impressions, and encounters. And really keeping myself in a sense awake by tracking these impressions. So risk is a part of this particular instinct. And there's something about stepping over the edge of the unknown and realizing this is risky and this could also maybe do me in. So that even almost heightens the attraction. But there's this sense of feeling like from time to time, I need to step off the ledge into the complete unknown, that's a part of my path. And part of my work is to try to be as conscious and awake regarding where I'm stepping, and realizing the bottom line is when I really step, I don't know what's going to happen next. And that's both the fear and the joy of this particular instinct. And, I can attest to this. I can feel myself going dead if I'm not attuned to this instinct in my life. It's like my whole being kind of starts to shut down. And that becomes an emergency wake up for, okay, what's the next thing? Where do I need to step into? Where's the attraction? So creativity in and of itself is about stepping into the unknown. Really, it's like, here I have the blank page in front of me, and now I'm just going to write something that I've never written before. I don't know what will happen if I follow this impulse, or I'm going to paint something purely on inspiration. It's not a copy of anything else. I'm going to trust that I'm going to step into this unknown craft and something will come through. So there's this risk taking around, can I be comfortable with the unknown and abide in it and experiment with it? It's the instinctive knowing that compels us to move in a new direction. And, it's being aware of the intensity, the magnetism, the gravitational pull of an attraction. And so what's interesting for the sexual types, they are often very aware of this attraction force, this pull towards a new experience. Other instinctual types don't necessarily resonate with this or don't listen to it. It's like, I do not want anything to do with that, following, the impulse to step into the unknown. Sometimes dominant self-pres folks will say, that's good for you, take the experiment, let me know if you lived by it, and then maybe I'll take a run with you. But, there's a lot of caution in the self-pres. So the other thing that one can learn over time is that these attractions, if I'm conscious and present, often lead me towards things that expand me and that are good for my soul. And the more awake I am, and the more I've healed my own sort of historical suffering, the more my attractions aren't wrapped up in unfinished emotional business. So there is a certain cautionary thing that any dominant sexual has to be aware of is am I leaping towards things that actually are serving me, or do I seem to be repeating the same mistake again in the face of feeling euphoric and excited as I do it? So there is a skillfulness that is required that often comes through time and experience. So the high of putting oneself at risk to go for what is exciting. So there is a certain good feeling that comes with, risk taking, and also accompanied with fear. But this is part of the sexual instinct, is riding through that and liking intensity and peeling away habits of deadness. Let's get intense. So, if you're an intensity type, a sexual type, the idea of, in-depth conversations about the real aspects of your life and what's going on with you, or having that kind of conversation with another person, is what's going to light you up. And to give an example, I had this experience years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, where there was a woman who wanted to hear about recovery and the Enneagram, and she'd actually flown in from Australia, and we met in a restaurant to just, chat at 9 in the morning. And about 6 in the evening, my wife calls and says, "Where are you?" And I went, "Oh my God, 9 hours have flown by. We just had this intense, engaging conversation about what moved us around addiction and recovery." And it wasn't so the intensity was, it was like there was light in the room the whole time, lost complete track of time. And I said, "I'll be home for supper. I'm sorry, I just got lost in a conversation, believe it or not. It was only 9 hours." But there's, any of you have had the experience, I'm quite sure, of all of a sudden you pick up a book and then you can't put it down because it grabs your attention and you're so pulled in by it, or a conversation, or maybe some artwork you're working on, or something that really takes you into that kind of depth. That's the sexual instinct. So if I'm not feeling intensity, I can get edgy and fear my life is dying. Feels like a threat to survival. So all of these instincts are survival instincts. And the sense of that my light is going out and that I'm dying is one that really can trigger me if I'm at a place in my life where I've sort of finished the cycle of some activity and it's time to go on to something new that I don't know about. So trusting spontaneity and the intuitive attraction of the moment. And this is a big one for the sexual instinct, this capacity to abide in spontaneity and being spontaneous and being bright and shining, and in a sense, trusting my intuition around the spontaneousness of my interests, my attractions, what compels me. Self-pres folks aren't as joyful about spontaneity. They like contained, smart, practical movement. So trusting and staying open to my desire and my intensity, not being afraid of it. And sexual types usually feel good. When things get more intense, it's like, that's my field. I like this intensity. It makes me feel alive. This is what I thrive on. The other two types, that's not what juices them. I can do and feel my desire. What does that mean? For the sexual dominant type, if they're healthy, it's like, I'm not afraid of the desires that pop up. I notice what I desire. Oh, I like that car over there. Oh, I'd like to talk to that person. Oh, I'd like this experience. I've got a desire for this certain kind of experience, this certain kind of depth. So part of the work for all of the instinctual types is noticing, am I at home with desire as it shows up inside of me? Or do I have a ceiling that kind of pushes it down? The sexual dominant usually doesn't have a ceiling, or if they do, they have to impose it because they're just inclined towards, let's go after the next intense experience. So a question would be for yourself is, what is your relationship with the issues of the evolutionary impulse? Do you trust your attractions? Do you trust your intensity, be it emotional, sexual, intellectual, social? Or do you resist, calm down, disregard, or deaden your attractions or intense states and avoid stepping into the unknown or uncharted waters that you feel drawn to? That's a great exercise to just, do with yourself. I can tell you, when I first discovered Russ Hudson, and that they were doing these trainings to allow me to be certified with the Enneagram Institute, the excitement I felt was just amazing. And it was accompanied by a fear that if I track this, I'm going to like it so much, I'll fall in love with somebody there and I'll leave my wife. That was my inner critic story. If you follow this, it's going to take you away from your family. So I just noticed as a sexual type, whenever I'm drawn towards something really strongly, there'll be some counter-phobic thing that says, oh no, don't trust that, something bad's going to happen. And I noticed that 99% of the time, if I track it and go towards it, it turns out to be great for all aspects of my life. So there is an intelligence to the attraction. So let's take a look at broadcasting zone 2. And remember to write down your questions. I'm going to come back to you. So for the sexual attraction types, it's our need to light ourselves up, to display our attractiveness, to show our ha-cha-cha, to show up in a certain way that reflects or draws attraction to us and promotes attraction towards other people. It's like I have permission to say, here I am in all my glory, and here I am. I can spread my stuff, and I don't have to mute my light. And I think of one sexual type, a woman named Lady Latifah, who's this, strong, powerful type 8, who's, always sort of showing her sexual energy and strutting her stuff as a part of just who she is. So charisma and juiciness, sexual dominance, usually have this kind of a charisma, attractive, can sort of wake you up with their juice, radiates this energy that people feel. There's often a sense of quality of radiating energy that draws people in. And the healthy sexual dominant celebrates it, encourages it, says, let's all shine on here. Let's all let our light be as bright as it is. So there's a way that I don't suppress or push down that urge in me to shine and arise and to be seen. And that's the sexual energy. And it could be, that I feel it, dancing. It might have something to do with, maybe this happens for me when I go into my own particular studies of things, but there's something about celebration of my being and my soul and letting it be seen that is a part of the sexual intensity instinct. So we have a few here. This is Kurt Cobain and Sean Penn and the type 2, what is her name? And I can exude a simmering, sizzling quality, intensity showing through. So when I first learned about the sexual instinct, I was with Russ Hudson for several days, and I couldn't figure out my dominant. And my wife and my friend said, "Are you out of your mind? You're intense. You like the intensity. You like to feel things in intense ways. You like to talk about intense and deep things. You dance intensely. That's your energy." And it was really interesting because it was so much a part of my fundamental being. I couldn't sit back and observe it. So sometimes people will identify their dominant instinct incorrectly because of this fact that it can take time to learn how to observe and to, in a sense, be objective about it. So we feel our juice, we sense it from within. We're like birds that are mating, displaying our feathers. Oftentimes, sexual dominant types are conscientious about colors and wearing bright colors or wearing jewelry that reflects their own charisma, taking on, sort of new cutting edge ways of expressing yourself through clothes, through color, through a variety of different things. So we show our glow, we express outwardly, we emanate, we flirt, not afraid to, reveal that part of us that feels attraction towards human beings. And so the self-pres contains the energy, the sexual broadcasts it and sends it. I'm here. Remember when I was in Barcelona several years ago, I was amazed at how the sexual energy was so dominant. It's like people just all dressed to highlight their best points of their attractiveness. It was like a display of beauty and sensuality and aliveness, and it's like they embodied their own sexual energy, and it wasn't pushy, it wasn't scary. It was just like, this is the realness of my sexual energy, and it feels awesome. I'm not gonna stuff it. So Sophia Vergara. All right. With broadcasting, we're reading other people's sexual attraction broadcasts. We see the ones that light up and we get interested and we go talk to them, right? The social instinct is more focused around meeting emotions, but the sexual instinct is not about reading emotions. It's about noticing the attraction energy, the intensity energy. And I know when I enter a room, I can usually feel very quickly who the folks are in the room that have this kind of intensity. And I'm usually drawn to them. I want to go talk to them, say hello to them, see what's going on. What you got cooking there? So it's not monitoring for safety or protection and environments that are not dangerous. That's the self-pres radar. Is it safe here? Is it predictable? Can I trust it? Will my self be intact here? Sexual instincts like, oh, it looks a little dangerous here. Maybe there's something here that might interest you. Danger doesn't necessarily mean go away from it. It may mean something else. So it's like I have little antenna that come out of my head when I enter a room. It's like this, we call this pinging the room for others that are broadcasting. And if you're a sexual instinct type, you know this orientation. The second I walk in a room, I'm usually notice instantly who I'm attracted to, who I'm drawn to. And it's on a number of different levels. There's just something about their vibration, their intensity, the aura around them. And I just spot it and go, there's somebody who's interesting. That's the sexual dominant. So you're looking to lock in on those signals for someone else who's broadcasting that signal. And there's something very at home about hanging out with another sexual intensity type. It's just like, we're in the same groove. I remember going to one IEA conference. This one guy, dominant sexual, said, have you noticed almost everybody here is so pres? It's the deadest group I've ever been around. I feel so lonely here. There's like nobody who's like, lit up and feeling their charisma or their juice or their passion. It's like, this is a pretty dead group. And I said, well, you know what, you might be too obsessed with your own energy. There's a few around here. You just have to look around a little bit. But that's the kind of orientation that one can have. So we like to display our aliveness. There's an extroversion around it. We often say the self-pres dominant tends to have more of a withdrawn style. The sexual dominant tends to be more extroverted. I'm putting my energy out there. I'm giving you signals. I notice when you light up and broadcast. And that's just a part of my way of being. So a lot of people's signal is turned down or off. And particularly blind spot sexuals, they'll have a sense of feeling like I got no magnetism here. Those people over there, the charismatic, magnetic ones, they have it. But if it's my blind spot, there can always be this feeling that somehow I didn't get that. So I'm just kind of like, no big deal. People aren't drawn to me. I don't feel that attraction energy. And sometimes the wound for the blind spot sexual type is just this sense that I just never got the attractive gene. I'm just kind of, ordinary, no big deal. And I just have to make peace with that. So that's where there can be really great heartbreak for those who have the blind spot sexual. I can feel the aliveness of others. So there's this sense of, because my feelers are always out there, my atmosphere is always out there, reaching, looking, touching, I can feel the energy in the room and the electricity in the room if there's aliveness in the room. So I mentioned this, I strategically place myself to the broadcast near me. My dearest friends are sexual dominants, just like myself. When we're healthy in this instinct, we have permission to desire what we desire. And for the sexual dominant, it's like, it's no big deal. If a particular attraction comes up, I don't have to act on it. I can just notice it and say, oh, wow, then I'm attracted to a lot of people, a lot of ideas, a lot of things. And when I'm healthy, I'm able to choose what works for me. And there's this way I think the dominant sexuals are known for not editing out their attractions and sometimes being bold around, pointing out how they feel about someone. I mean, occasionally I remember this one type 8 sexual dominant, walks up. I was at a workshop and she walks up to this guy and says, if I had it in my power, I would just eat you on the spot. That's how I feel about you. It's like, okay, so you got some energy there. All right. And the guy's going, I just don't take a bite out of me, hon. I'm lying low here. But there's this kind of, it's almost like audacious in some ways in terms of expressing it. And again, when I'm healthy, I don't intrude on people's boundaries, but I certainly pierce them with my attraction energy. So noticing when I'm pulled toward and pulled away from. And so one way you can sort of notice this instinct is on two different polarities. One is to just notice when you enter a room, if you experience states of aversion towards people in the room, or if you notice, oh, there's attraction here, there's aversion here. Isn't that interesting? What's this aversion? Oh, and there's attraction here. What does that mean? And just to notice over time how that attraction energy changes. I'm sure all of you have had the experience of coming into a room, meeting somebody, and feeling turned off by them or aversion about them. And and then over time, as you got to know them and a little better, that they started to then, in a sense, have an attractive energy about them that you liked. So again, we all deal with attraction, aversion things. It's just that the sexual instinct type has that turned up about 3 times brighter than the other instinctual types. We all have this energy. So I notice attraction and repulsion is always happening to people, places, things, ideas. And I know for myself, this attraction thing is really bizarre. There'll be some days when I walk in my front door of my house and I'm just so attracted to everything. I go, oh man, this whole vibe here is incredible. And the next day I walk in and there's this aversion, like this is the most ordinary thing on planet Earth. And I can just feel that barometer of attraction, repulsion really going up and down. So what's your relationship with the broadcasting attraction instinct? Do you embody it, tighten against it, refuse to listen to it, disregard it, tone it down, or do you overexpress it and feel shameful about it? So if we're talking about and do you allow yourself to shine, to radiate your being? So I know for myself, I feel my best when I'm radiating and I'm unafraid to sort of show my light and my energy and my magnetism and my inspiration. When I'm in that place, there's just a sense of flow and well-being. Now, with the sexual dominance, what they have to be careful about is under stress, whether it's fear, hurt, shame, anger, their tendency is to go to the sexual dominant instinct to get it fulfilled in some way. And this is where it can become impulsive, unhealthy, taking on risks that really are too risky. But there's this way, I know as a sexual dominant, I can get some kind of satisfaction from this impulse. And so maybe for some people, it could be sexual addiction, could be pornography, could be, some way where I just go and, somehow heighten the sexual attraction feeling. But again, when I'm healthy, there's balance and there's wisdom, and I'm not pulled so much into chaotic experiences. But, when, let's say, for instance, when people first come into recovery, often the sexual dominants find themselves just chasing down, the partner for the next encounter. It's like, okay, now that we're working on the steps, what I really want to do is make sure I have this link up with somebody. And if I'm a dominant sexual, that can wipe me out. And, I don't know how many people I've worked with who their dominant was sexual instinct. And because they didn't have a partner, they couldn't bear being in recovery until they found one. And of course, where do you find one easily? Go to a bar. There's always other sexuals hanging out, and then relapse and go down the tube again. But there's again, part of the wisdom, if that's my dominant instinct, is to develop a clarity around when is it that I'm neurotically being driven by it, and when is it something that's really coming from a place of sanity and well-being. So tell me an exciting risk you know you want to take or wish you could. That's a great sexual instinct question. What's an exciting risk you know you want to take or wish you could? Okay, the third zone, immersion and fusion. So it looks like we're tracking through this quick enough, and so we'll have plenty of time for questions. So immersion fusion. The ability and passion to lose myself in the other, to merge with them at depth. And often this shows up in intimate relationships, real need for depth, intimacy, knowing somebody at a really deep level, not just the type fours, anybody with a sexual instinct. This is a part of what their draw is to make sure that we're going deeper, we're into newer territory, we're not just staying stagnant. Sometimes sexual dominants have a hard time being in committed relationships for any length of time. I know for myself, I think the first 7 relationships I had were all 3 years long, and then they would burn out. And then I met Donna, my wife, who's also sexual dominant, and seemed to play the same chords that I played, and we've been together now for 27 years. So that's a miracle. As Russ Hudson used to say, most sexual dominants can't stay in committed relationships for very long. They get bored. It starts to feel like a death trap. So it's the energy that can take me into intimacy. And ultimately, the hope is, if you're a dominant sexual, that you learn to, in a sense, open your heart so that your sexual energy is not just coming through the passion of sex, but also through the heart center, loving kindness and connection. But ultimately, it's about really going into the depth of the heart and having the courage, in a sense, to unveil oneself. And we say sometimes the sexual energy is really the deeper impulse of spirituality, to pierce barriers, limitations, and to go into the unknown and step into the unknown each time it's necessary to grow and mature. So it's the energy that says, okay, I'm going to surrender and jump in the fire here. And I'll just keep jumping in and trust that I will come out the other side. But it's ultimately, on the deepest level, it's about this, having the courage to pierce through illusions, because you know what it's like to all of a sudden, see an illusion drop in front of you and go, oh my God, I can't believe I missed this. There's always that instinct to draw back and say, I'm not coming this way again. That was too much. And what do they say about the spiritual journey? Once you walk through the door, it closes behind you and there's no going back. So this is where the sexual instinct is so powerful for keeping the momentum forward. With our capacity to deeply engage others with our intensity, and to engage life with intensity, wholehearted, with all of our heart and soul. So we've mentioned this already, expressing desire deeply, our capacity for experiencing ecstasy. Well, what does that mean? To fully feel the ecstasy of sexual emotional connection or intense emotional connection. So I was at a meeting this last Sunday. I was celebrating my anniversary, and my daughter was presenting the chip to me. And at one point she said, I can just feel the energy in this room. It's like coming right through me. I feel like I'm embraced by this huge hug. And I thought, oh my God, she's reading the sexual energy. There's this sense of ecstasy, at a great meeting, there's this sense of joy, love, and kindness that just opens up. And if you're able to bear it, it can get pretty big and pretty wide and pretty amazing, or it can be like a flicker in your heart, which you appreciate. But I've noticed the longer I've been at this work and the healthier I've gotten, that those moments of openness are more expansive. broader, bigger. It feels like it feels like I can sort of embrace the whole room, or the whole room embraces me. And you could call, and there's a quality of deep ecstasy when that happens. So ecstasy doesn't necessarily mean some kind of sexual experience. There's a way that we can come into union with people on very deep levels that don't have anything to do with the sexuality. So, a deep emotional connection, when you know what it's like to be in a room when someone has shared a deep emotional truth and you're deeply riveted by it. I wonder, did I ever tell the story of the guy in the lime green suit? Do you remember that, Cheryl?
I don't remember it, so I don't think you told it.
Okay, well, this is just to give you an example. So I was at an AA meeting a couple of years ago, and all these crusty looking Mainers were there, and we're all there for a speaker meeting. And this guy gets up to the podium, and he's got on a lime green suit that goes down to about 8 inches before his ankle. And I think, oh my God, this is Pee Wee Herman. This is going to be one of those tragic meetings. And he's supposed to talk the whole time, right? And so he starts talking, and he talks from such a deep level of truth and humility that not a pin could drop in the room. People were just mesmerized by the electricity of his authenticity. And he spoke for an hour. And of course, his lime green suit just turned into the background, because this guy was so deeply soulful and loving and fiercely truthful. And the end of it, everybody is just lit up, like we're just like have all been, struck by the Buddha or the Christ or Muhammad. And there's sense of unity and love, and just this intensity, deep intensity of love, which I think is part of the sexual instinct, came through. Well, you know what it's like when you're at a meeting, and when people share from their core, it touches something deep, and it can be very intense. So it's our ability to focus our attention and to dissolve boundaries, to go deep. Okay, so Prez, I want to preserve. Social instinct, I want to adapt and team with you. Sexual instinct, I want intensity, expressive spontaneity. I want to fully meet you with my desire for you and with you. So a little bit about this. The energy starts to lead us towards intimacy if the heart is involved. Love and desire merge, which is the higher aspect of loving connection. And must begin with allowing oneself to desire what one desires without judgment, to experience my desire, to not edit it, just to notice, oh, there it is. I can remember I was at a Diamond Heart workshop one time, and this guy said, I just have this real attraction towards red Corvettes. And is that okay? And the teacher said, of course it's okay. If you trust what you desire, it will lead you to your deeper spiritual desire. So don't start doing a spiritual bypass on things like, oh, I love that red coat. Oh, that's just too materialistic. I shouldn't really desire that. He said, try to stay open to your desire. You don't have to go after each one of them, but there's something about keeping that open that also is a conduit to something that has to do with deep spiritual desire. So, idea to work with. So it can be that sense of completely dissolving yourself in something, like the conversation I had with a woman about addiction and recovery, or, at the very best, in communion with my wife and lovemaking, or the sense that we fuse into a sense of oneness and go beyond our boundaries. Total involvement with the object of my focus. So I think sometimes of, the many years I played basketball and baseball, and during the, championship games, there was a way that one just completely dissolved into your teammates, and you became one being. It's like you thought with the same mind, and there was a way of just, there might have been 25,000 fans in the stadium, couldn't even see them. All you saw was this moment of connection with your teammates, or with the ball bouncing on the floor, or the sound, but everything became almost like hyper focused. And that's the sexual instinct going into something with depth and precision, and really, dissolved into it. So immersion can be done in a piece of music, a painting, a book, a conversation, lovemaking. I remember the first time I got a hold of the book called In Search of the Miraculous by Ouspensky. My therapist mentor said, why don't you read this book, see what happens? I picked it up, read the first couple pages, and then read for as long as I could until I fell asleep, and then woke up and then read again until I finished it. It was about 400 pages, but I could not take my eyes off the story. It was so compelling, and it, in a sense, opened up a brand new world of understanding around how human beings operate and how they go unconscious, how they come into presence. And it's what got me into the Gucci work. But that particular book just totally ate and drank me. I mean, it was just amazing. And there's been other books like that where you start reading, you know, I'm sure each of you have read different books that just took your attention and you bonded with it, so to speak. So it gives you fire, courage, and passion to completely give yourself to that thing that you're doing and to surrender to change, intensity, aliveness, your current of passion. To start to trust and allow intensity. Now, sometimes dominant socials or self-pres say when things start to get intense, I get a little bit edgy. I feel like I can't control it, so I start to put it down. And the challenge is, can I learn to allow that intensity to be there, you know, and just experiment with stepping into it a little bit more, because it may be something that's really important for you in terms of what your next step is. Where, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've been, you know, attracted to somebody at a workshop, just this attraction. I must speak to them. And my first thought is, oh, that's crazy. That doesn't make sense. But if I track it and go say hello to them, many times I end up having a really deeply meaningful conversation that leads me to something else that really matters in my life. So my attractions often lead me to people who have been, you know, great contributors to my own path and my own journey. So it's our permission to desire what we desire. Do you have permission to desire deeply? That's a question. Or do you keep the lid on it? Or do you like your attractions, excitements, and passions? Do you say, yum, that's a great attraction. I like that. So what's your experience of fusion immersion? Do you overexpress it, underexpress it, avoid it, not feel it, feel ashamed of it? Where and when do you experience it? So we went through a lot. It's time for questions. I hope you wrote some down. Let's see what's cooking.
All right. So if anybody has a question or a comment or a share, just raise your hand and ask Michael.
And if this instinct lands for you, I'd love to hear about it.
All right, Vera, go ahead.
Yeah, I love this, and it is my main instinct. And I was wondering, when you're talking about not being afraid of desires and not being afraid of intensity, which is one that is, I guess, more difficult for me because I'm afraid of it nowadays in recovery. You talked about staying there and staying with with those desires, and you also talked about how then your inner critic comes in, and that you've got this counterphobic thing, and I didn't get that well. I didn't get, yeah.
Well, so first let me ask a question. So did you feel a strong affinity with this instinct?
Oh, absolutely. It should be my first for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So part of the journey for the dominant sexual instincts is to begin to decipher what's the healthy aspect of it and what is the part that gets me in trouble. So just from my own experience, when I first started trusting my sexual instinct, I kept hooking up with women who didn't like men. And at one point, my mentor said, "No more relationships for you. You need to wait a year before you step in because you're your attraction instinct is whacked. It doesn't work accurately for who you are and where you're going. And you end up sort of having it merge with some sort of crazy fantasy life. Being a type 4, of course, I had a lot of different fantasy lives that I had to have nuked so I could be real at some point. So part of the work for me was to begin to have an inner sense of when an attraction has some kind of neurotic edge to it that I just wasn't going to track because I'd already gone there before and I've been destroyed before and had a terribly sad time, and or when it really harmonized with something deeper in me, and that took some time to learn to trust that. So part of it was just experimenting with, I remember my mentor saying, don't mute your desires, allow them to be there, and then you can learn to start to sort through them and follow the ones that really have the inspiration, the possibility of a close connection with somebody who might be one of your colleagues down the road. And so over time, there was a way that it felt like my heart started to connect with my desires, and I would be drawn towards people that would end up creating a really loving, caring friendship, and becoming a colleague, becoming a co-teacher with. And so it started to guide me in an intelligent way. But in the early days, when I was like in my 20s, oh my God, I was like a bull in a china shop and knocking over every piece of glassware in the store, because that attraction energy mixed with my type 4 fantasizing. And so I had to learn to notice, oh, with this attraction energy, it wakes up infatuation. Like I'll start dreaming about someone, and that's always a sign to me that I need to just back off from it, notice it, don't suppress it, but realize this is the stuff of imagination more so than the real person that I'm connecting with. Does that make sense? Anything else you want to add to that question, Vera?
No, just that, the intensity and type 4 just seem like a very explosive combination. And I think that, and when you talk about the gift being equanimity, intensity and equanimity don't seem to go together for some reason.
Yes.
Inside me, I find it difficult to have both at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a work in progress. So it is actually, the more you heal your own emotional wounds, the more you have access to the equanimity, and the more that starts to really factor in with the sexual instincts, so that they, in a sense, they start to become one, and you can actually be intensely in a state of equanimity and be able to notice. So that's what sexual force do.
That
sounds like a dream. Thank you.
Thank you. So Michael, real quick, can you talk about addiction in this, like addiction to food in this, or addiction to alcohol in this, or addiction to skydiving, or any of, right? The stuff that brings excitement, except it's,
yeah, it's a tough one to sort out, because there is if you think of the quality of craving, that goes with food or with other substances, it's probably a combination of both sexual and also self-pres, which is, there's something predictable about my addictions that make me feel comfortable. So it's probably a blend. And of course, the part that hooks us first is the high of the experience. And then, of course, that disappears, and now we don't have a high, and then we got to go do it again. And in a sense, I think that's where the wheel of the sexual instinct starts to spin. But it combines, I think, with the self-pres quite well. And in terms of, I get comfortable with the pattern. There's a certain, predictability about what's going to happen. And I can, just get as, so that it's hard to separate those out, but I think that those two instincts both play a part.
Thank you very much. Okay, Joanne, to you. Joe, can you come on camera, dear? Perfect, thank you.
Hi, Michael, this has been fascinating. My question is that I think the sexual instinct is my least dominant instinct. I think I'm possibly self-preservation dominant. but I've noticed over the past few months that something in me has a growing need, almost a desperation, to access the sexual instinct and to be able to express it. It's like something in me has been suppressed or buried for so long that it suddenly wants to be released.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'm quite curious about that. Is this possible for this to
Yeah.
happen?
Well, oh, absolutely. It sounds like you're in a part of a growth cycle, personal growth cycle around, as you said it, accessing this energy that I haven't had easy access to. So it sounds, the challenge then is, how do I navigate this desire in a way that allows me to step into it little by little and feel like I'm in control of it? And what can I learn to trust in myself? Because when a lot of times the blind spot sexuals have just had this sense that if I ever begin to feel this, that it's just going to be too much, or I'm going to end up in the temple of Dionysus with all the type fours, or they're having orgies all the time, and I don't want that to happen. But there can be sort of this sense that if I feel this, I'm going to come unglued and have no control. And again, it's not the same for each, but I think that's where working closely with, a therapist or a coach or people you trust around, hey, this energy is, we all have this energy. And when it starts to open up, it can feel very uncomfortable. I mean, how are you with intensity in general?
I experience quite intense emotions, so I'm quite comfortable with that side of it.
And what type are you?
I don't know at the moment. I'm
Okay.
still exploring that, but I could be a type 4, possibly.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're starting into another growth phase, and I would just say, get some good coaches around you so that you can navigate in a way that really works for you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joanne. Linda, to you.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for doing this today.
Hi, Linda.
From what I had assessed before, I think I'm self-preservation, but hearing you read off some of these things, I do feel more a lot, when I've got a new thing and I'm attracted to it. I don't know if I don't know. Maybe I've just been in recovery long enough that I'm more evened out. I don't know, but there's things like, you know, the fantasy things like I'd like to hike the Appalachian Trail, or now my friend's doing the Camino. It's like, oh, I'd love to do that, and it's but I think I'm such a creature of comfort that it's like, I don't know if I'll get off the couch I'll walk down to the next town, but I don't know if I'll keep on walking to the one after that. So, anyway, and another thing, like with doing event type work, I always like to do something new. I don't like to do in the past, I've not liked to do things that I've already done, but I don't know. Anyway, I think I'm getting better with that, and having comfort with things that are kind of laid out and don't have to change too much. That I don't have to learn a bunch more.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like you have a strong self-preservation instinct, and that your sexual instinct talks to you from time to time. And the question is, if my dominant instinct is self-pres and my sexual instinct is talking to me, can I at least stay open to it? Because it might give me an experience that really could inspire me, could deepen my own sense of spirituality. And you don't have to give up self-pres to do that, but it's only to say that we have all three instincts. And so part of it's just to notice, oh, there's that self-pres, that boy, there's a part of me that really loves comfort and routine. Oh, that's my self-pres, that's not a problem. But, oh, isn't it interesting? The Camino, what is it about that that draws me? That's definitely not a self-preservation exercise, but what is there something calling to me that really matters? And that's one way to work with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Michael. Jim, to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Michael. So it's quite a to ask, and it is a sort of one question thing. Okay, so in my dysfunctionality or the dysfunctional family in which I was raised, my mother was uh having a serial affairs, and I had an emotional abuser, my stepfather. So my this was my insight, my introduction to relationships. So all of my relationships have failed as a consequence because of the dysfunctionality that I had. And as time went by, my relationships were with people who were not very stable themselves, you know. And as I moved further in life, the world that I inhabited, they have a sort of graph for stress levels. 1 through 40, 1 to 10 is very healthy. 25 to 35, very unhealthy. So I sat at 28. So my stress levels were very high, and it didn't make me wish to be involved in a relationship, although my mind may have told me otherwise. Um, Now, as I move on to this point in time, what I find myself in a position, and it's awkward, is that on occasion, when women are attracted to me, they're much younger than I am, and I'm not too sure how to relate to it. Even though I'd say to them, listen, I'm much older than you are, and I don't know how to work it. So, relationships I still have a difficulty with, because at this point, it's only maybe just over the past year and a half, not much longer, that I've been going through ACA work, codependency, and joined Surrender School back in November, and reading emotional sobriety and so many other things. It's maybe just a few years ago that I went no contact with a dysfunctional family. So I'm still at early stages of
Yeah. Well, it
emotional.
sounds to me like sounds like to me you have a lot to unpack about your family of origin and a lot of healing around what the experience was with your mother and all of the affairs she had and how it affected you and your sense of understanding relationship or her being present to you. So, these things take time, and you can notice your attractions. But I always encourage men, as men encourage me, to get in a men's support group to really bring these perceptions up, questions up, so that you have the wisdom of other men in the room who have gone through the experiences beforehand can guide you. They're not the kind of, if I just follow my own guidance through it, I just run into every, rock and wall. So there's something, you're in early recovery around this stuff. And I would just encourage you to find a really healthy men's group and that's really open about talking about this, because this is an experience where men can really help other men with it. That would be my guidance.
That's great, Michael. I am in a men's 12-step group, and that's just thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, stick with it. Stick with it.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Michael.
Cheryl, I got a question. There was, when I was talking with folks before, there'd be myself and the person talking on the screen, and now it's just me looking into the void, so I can't see who I'm talking to. Is there any way to switch that back so it's not just...
I think so. If you go to the top of your screen and click gallery as opposed to speaker, I think
my
it
God.
brings up like the gallery of people, and then the person ends up at the top of the screen.
Oh my word, what did I do? Let's see. Okay, I'll go to gallery. All right, we'll give that a try.
Okay, so Lori is next. Lori, if you want to go ahead. Thank you for asking for that, Michael.
Yeah, sorry for the confusion with the screens, Michael. We can we'll work with that. But I have a question. So I'm a 9, and I took a Enneagram test that included the instinctual variant and was identified as sexual. And for the most part, I identify with it. And what you just covered, I don't so much identify with the broadcasting part, but the other two zones I do. And you talked about a blind spot for some of this. And then my other question is the fact that to me, there just seems to be a kind of odd juxtaposition for a 9 and sexual. So
yeah,
can help
well,
me with that.
there can be certainly a conflict of interest because the 9 tends to be withdrawn and the sexual instinct tends to not be withdrawn. So there's a more subtle way that it shows up. It doesn't mean that the energy is not there. So let me ask you a couple of questions. You said that the one zone that didn't quite fit for you was the broadcasting, but that the first one, sort of testing the edge of things, and then the third one about emerging, merging with things. Sounds like those two fit for you. Yeah. So anytime somebody is a dominant, it's usually 2 of the 3 zones that are strong. So there'll be one that isn't quite as strong. And likewise, if it was a blind spot, one of the zones might be strong and the other 2 not strong, or just really distant. So there was a question in there, but I've already lost it. What was the question?
Well, just the idea of the 9 being a sexual person. And regarding the broadcasting, I walk into a room of people and I just want to leave. I don't like crowds, so I don't get drawn to anybody. I just want to get out of the room.
Okay. Okay. So how does the intensity part of the instinct work for you?
I have the desires to like the creative side, the taking some risks and stuff like that. I don't act on very much of it at all, but I have the feeling, and I'm dealing with a lot of those issues of where I've kind of repressed and not allowed myself to let go and do things that I want to do. I've spent my life kind of in the background, in the shadows. I've been a 9. I've had my head in the sand and avoiding things.
Okay. So when you identify with sort of, the first zone, which has something to do with finding the known edge of something and going beyond it, how is that manifested in your life?
Oh, when I was younger, I wanted to skydive. I never did that. I wanted to learn to fly. I didn't do that. I went to Europe all by myself. I did do that. But in my life and in my relationship with my husband, I've kind of, I think, suppressed some of that. I've let go of some of that to practicality and just the idea of, dealing with just day-to-day life.
Okay. Well, is it possible that you might be a self-pres dominant? But only just to talk about suppression of the instinct. I have one dear friend I worked with for a number of years, and she was a type 8 sexual, and she grew up in the deep South where women having any connection with their sexual energy was not allowed or permitted in any way, shape, or form. So she basically suppressed it, and it would come out as anger or her drinking. That's the way she would drink, and then she would just get, crazy angry and irritable. And when she finally found, understood the 3 instincts, she realized that she had that dominant instinct suppressed her whole life, and that her alcoholism was connected to further kind of suppressing it and keeping it down. So, your dominant can be suppressed, and Part of the work is, as you stay healthy, is just to, in a sense, have a healthy relationship with any of the instincts. When people come into recovery, their instincts are all skewed in every direction. There's no way to even identify what the dominant is or what the blind spot is. Everybody is, you know, out of balance. So what I always say is, if you notice that one of the zones is a blind spot for you, that's a place where you can do some inner work that could be really helpful.
And it is the fact that I did take a test that identifies this. Are those tests very valid, or is this more of something we need to find ourselves just through reading? And
well, I'm a fan of finding out for myself, because I find that the tests aren't always accurate for me. If you take the test and then you start reading about, you know, the orientation in the material, and it confirms your test score, that's great. But I think you got to do that work. Otherwise, you know, you may be misidentified. And I think that, Cheryl, didn't you give them a link to be able to go to the article I have on my website about the 3 instincts? Okay, great.
We can do that again, though. Yeah, I'll put it out on WhatsApp, and then Lori, if you can put it in the chat, that'd be great. Thank you. All right, so thank you, Lori. Thanks, Michael. Liz, to you.
Hello, I'm a 4.
Hi, Liz.
Last time I listened to the self-praise, I say, oh, that's what I am. But now listening to you, I say, okay, this describes me, like, for sure, as I remember, from my teens to my late 50s. And I became sober from drug and alcohol in my 40s. So I don't know. I think like, let's say late 50s, I became afraid, exhausted, burning the candle, both hands, living on the edge. I'm afraid of myself. I don't know. I think thinking of it, I learned to take care of my health, and now I'm looking for security and not moving too much, because I got exhausted. I got burned I burned myself. But then again, I think probably those 2 instincts maybe were high, and that would explain how I feel all my life, how I felt that things that were contradictory. Like Lori said, I'm a 9 and I'm a sexual, like, go figure. But well, thank you. That helps to have that description of sexual instinct as a person who was not recovered, not work, because, yeah, my relationships never lasted long. It actually was probably 2 years. And I would be very direct to go get the man in those relationships that I wanted.
Yeah.
And I always felt really, really rotten, because I know it's not everybody's story. Even in the using years, some people were not like that. I was feeling very rotten. That I didn't have the heart at the right place. So now it explains, that I had a strong instinct, and I was, just in my life, and it helped to hear you saying something about that.
Well, so you point to something I think that I didn't mention, is this idea that when the dominant instinct, sexual instinct, is out of balance, I can burn myself out and, burn my candle at both ends and feel good while I do it until I'm, exhausted. And that means, on a practical level, that instinct runs me. I'm not running it, right? It has me. It takes me where it wants to go, and I follow. And if I'm not healthy enough, I can get completely caught in it and go from one thing to the next and burn through relationships and through jobs, etc. So the solution obviously is coming into balance and contact with the other instincts. And it sounds like the self-preservation instinct is the one that you started to nurture, maybe from coming into recovery. I know for myself, coming into recovery helped me start to land in the self-pres instinct so that I was less volatile and taken by the excitement of the moment. So anyway, keep doing that work. It sounds like it's helped.
Yeah, well, I really need to, well, not need, I don't want to, I don't want to, but the social is really missing.
Right.
Always
Well,
been.
yeah. So that sounds like that's your big blind spot. And so we can talk a little bit about later about how to start working with that. So, all right.
Merci, Liz. Thank you, Michael. Fiona, to you.
Yeah, hi there. Hi, Michael. Hi,
Hi,
everybody.
Fiona.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting to hear this. Yeah. And for me, what I've put down in Surrender School is shopping. That's what I'm dealing with. I'm in multi-fellowships, but the shopping, and the intensity, I can get the treasure hunt,
Oh, yeah.
and I've done collecting before, car boot sales, whatever anyway, but it's shopping. That's what I'm dealing with. And the other day, just feeling this vacuum because now, I've put it down. So I thought I literally sometimes don't know what to do with myself. I did 2 meetings on Wednesday, and then normally I'd have a look around the shops, after fellowship and stuff. So I took myself to a church, and a choir came in, and that was beautiful, and then anyway, a little story, my cousin was actually singing in the choir. He was a chorister. So and then anyway, so it ended up a social thing, bit of HP, I think. But just as it's kind of like literally that thing about if you're trying to change habits, like what to do. And then I thought, well, maybe that's what I need to do, get like classical music and go around with earmuffs, listening to it, like, I don't know, or like that spiritual door, like you're saying, like, and I stayed for stations at the cross in the church that was going on as well. It was a whole thing the choir was singing to. So I was just going to mention that if you've got any ideas around that. And the other thing too about, the sexual thing, the negative what's aspect, I think for me is that my mum was very shame based. She was a 2, and I think I'm got that sexual shame based. When I was young, I used to always cover my breasts up. Used to wear that over my school uniform, a jacket to hide, and I'm nearly 60 now, so a lot of that's kind of like receded a bit, but I still feel like I want to celebrate my femaleness. And I bought myself a drum, what's it called, one of those frame drums, and do some drumming, and I could just see myself swirling like Stevie Nicks, and just to get my body a bit free, but
Awesome.
I still kind of got to go that edge. But yeah, so that's interesting, like that,
Well, that's
yeah.
definitely the sexual energy is getting the drums out and getting your body into it and feeling it moving around. So if it felt good, I'd say keep doing it.
Yeah. And then what do you think about I mean, Cher touched on that, like the intensity from addiction, and then trying to, yeah, I don't know. That's really difficult. It's kind of like, well, what am I going to do?
Well, when I got sober, the first thing I experienced was that everything felt flat. And I didn't like flat. I didn't like no juice. And I discovered that as I stayed sober, that slowly but surely that sexual instinct started to wake up again. And I started noticing it in intense attraction towards music, towards beauty, towards photography, towards dance. but I had to sort of stand in the boredom. And I felt like somebody dropped me into an empty room with nothing to do. And because I was used to stirring that up by drinking and using substances, and that felt good. But once I stopped using, I had about a year where I said, in that whole year, I don't think I told one thing that was funny. I didn't say one. I was just so flat. And then it started to wake up on its own. So part of it is being patient, and part of it, is, I would say, come to the fourth session, and we're going to talk about how you can wake up some of these things. So
Thank you,
thank you.
Fiona.
Thank you.
Michael. Thank you, Michael. Melissa, go ahead.
Hi, Michael.
Hi.
I'm feeling so convicted during this whole session about maybe it's a blind spot of mine, but I know that my whole life leading up to, well, my single years before getting married was being described by you as just being like pulled from relationship to relationship because it made me feel alive, and it was a very chaotic experience, and it's like there's no center of gravity in me. I'm letting other people pull me into their whatever they need, and it made me feel alive. It's like cattle prod,
Absolutely.
And now I'm in this marriage to this man I love so much, and he's rather insecure. And so I'm always tamping down somewhat this, I don't know, like I just don't want to make him feel insecure. So I'm trying to, like, I guess you would say, like, really behave in such a way where nothing would threaten him. And yet now I find myself really flat, really depressed, and I don't know how to find that spark again. And you could describe me when I was young, like I had two speeds. I was either 100% on and so intense and into everything, and everything inspired me, and I was going all out, and I could be like you, where I'd stay and talk to somebody for 5 hours and not know where the time went, or I'm completely dead, And so I'm in that dead phase, and it's very scary. And I don't know what else to say about that, except I just wanted to own up to, I'm identifying with what you're talking about, and it's a little scary.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your authenticity and your vulnerability, and whenever I hit a dead space, it's always alarming because it feels like I'm going to die here. And then usually the challenge is, well, what's stepping into the unknown? Well, stepping into the unknown in this might be talking with your husband about what you're going through, so that you reveal yourself and perhaps come to some kind of understanding. So because the challenge is, if I start suppressing if I start suppressing because I'm afraid if I tell the truth about something, it's going to ruin me, I also start shutting myself down. And that's the real key around the sexual energy. Am I starting to shut myself down regarding my truth, or my real fear, or my confusion, or whatever it is I'm going through? And so how can I lean into that a little bit? And and whether it's starting a conversation with the women in your life who you trust, and then starting it with your husband, it sounds like that might be an interesting cutting edge in your relationship that could open up a lot of connection.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Really.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Michael. So I want to share a quick story. My husband and I go to different coffee shops in Las Vegas, and we go to this one, and there's this woman. She is all there. She's all in. She comes to the table and sits with us. She's a waitress, right? She comes and sits and talks. And I am like lit up by this woman. And my husband's a 5, and he is not lit up by this woman at all. Right? So, so I don't go there with him. I can see him shutting down, right? And I was just like, because I'm so badly wanted to say, are you a friend of Bill W? Because she just seems she's either an alcoholic or a friend of Bill W. I can tell you that, one or the other, right? So anyway, but I know I'll probably go back there by myself and sit and talk to her at some point, because I just lit up from her. And there are some people, they just light me up and I connect to them, which is so cool. Anyway, I wanted to share that, but I do think my husband and I will not go back there because it makes him feel uncomfortable, and I don't want him to feel uncomfortable. So Melissa, I'm hearing what you're saying. I truly am. And that's part of, I've been married 44 years. So that's part of that. okay, that I'm not gonna, when I was young, I didn't care what he felt like. We were doing what I wanted to do, but I'm much better now. So, all right. So, Michelle, go ahead. And then Michael will wrap this up as soon as she's finished.
Okay.
Thank you. I didn't know if I should raise my hand. So I'm a 4. All of this felt really real. All of it felt like real. And there wasn't really anything that I was very like, no, that's not me. I wanted to, because I feel like a sexual 4 is problematic. Why I don't know. It's like I'm always like at war with myself and mind and doing this work. It's like I don't know, is this a blind spot that I just never saw because I didn't want to see it or be it or whatever? And I did take the test, that the one that's the Enneagram test with instinctual variant that's on the site, and I came out as a type 4 SO.
Oh, social.
And I don't know if you talked about that one yet. And if you did, I think maybe I don't know, maybe that's my blind spot. And this is another one. So I'm confused.
Okay.
But I relate to this, and I see how this can just cause a lot of problems. Like before I was married, currently in my relationship with my husband, we've been married for a long time, and now kind of like seeing things that I never probably saw because they'd been suppressed probably from younger, like way before I even met him, right? And so it's just, I don't know, it's this sexual stuff is very triggering for me because it feels like it just rings all of these kind of bells, and hits me in all the places in my body that make me think like I don't actually want to go here.
Yeah.
Want to run the other way really fast. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
This feels super scary. So
Yeah. Well, so if I understood you correctly, it sounds like you identified a lot with the different aspects the 3 zones of the sexual instinct, and that sometimes it can feel overwhelming in terms of how to deal with it. And for myself, this is one of my solutions. At one point, I kept running into a new soulmate every day. Like, oh, that's the one. And then, oh, no, it's that one over there. And I can remember at one point I said to my therapist, I got 25 soulmates. How do I choose anybody? And he said, well, that's because you were caught in the type 4 sexual instinct, and you're casting what he called your anima, or your female part of yourself, out to the woman. And he said, the solution is you got to start getting disciplined around your creativity. If you have something that you're creative around, you start showing up for it on a regular basis, and it will start to anchor that sexual attraction energy so it's less scattered over whatever the moving object is in front of you. Because I remember for many years as a type 4, like that attraction energy would fuse with infatuation, and then I would think that's the one, and whoever I was with wasn't the one, and then I would drive myself crazy. And it took a long time to get grounded in it and not be so taken by it. But that took meditation practice and writing and sticking with me. I started writing every day for an hour. I had a particular path I could follow. If I was a painter, I would have been painting an hour a day, but something to use that energy, that creative energy, the sexual energy, so it's less taking hold of me and throwing me wherever it wants to go.
thank you for that. I'm a little bit speechless, but I know, like, I have all of this, and I know it's like wants to come out, if I could just like rein myself in, my schedule, all of this energy that wants to go to a lot of different places, you know. But I like this idea, just kind of like focusing in on, you know, just being disciplined in one way. I think that's like, I like that. I like that. It kind of gives me a job or a goal, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the other thing I would just say is it's really helpful if you have a couple women in your life where you can really talk openly about this. So you're not having to try to figure it out in your own head all the time. Because, you know, inside the head of a type 4, there's like too much information going in too many different directions, and it can be really confusing. But having some kind of mentor or a therapist or a coach or whatever that helps you, at least the more, you know, what I also is helpful is journaling, where I just write everything out on the page and get all the ghosts on the page. That oftentimes will settle things down for me.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and close this, although if you can hang around a little while, Michael, there may be more questions, but we'll go ahead and close it with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. All right, so if anybody else has questions, we'll hang around as long as Michael's willing.
Thanks for recovering with us.